too. So we've just turned 40, and I wish I was. May I welcome everyone to our Friday Connect and Share, and can I pay my respects to all Aboriginal people that we work with on a day-to-day basis, and the people that care for our land, earth and sea. And may I pay my respects to all elders past, present and emerging. So we're going to just do a quick what you need to know. The newsletter for the industry is coming out today. So you'll have a lot of content in there around what you need to know, but the members newsletter, as you know, is more in depth with the actions and opportunities that are open to Outdoors New South Wales and ACT members. For those that have missed my spiel about who we are, I thought I'd give a quick snapshot as we lead into this one, and just say that Outdoors New South Wales and ACT is your peak body for all things outdoor recreation, outdoor education, outdoor adventure, tourism, and also adventure therapy. So we're here to make your lives a lot easier and hopefully do the things that you don't have to spend time doing, so you can do what matters, and that's getting people outdoors for the health and well-being of the community. So quick, let's go through what we need to know, and NOAC is probably high on the agenda. So the National Outdoor Education Conference has been set. It is happening. It is happening in 2021. It's happening on the 28th of September through to the 1st of October. Early bird rates are now open, so you can register and jump in and get your tickets for that event. It'll be great to connect with everyone. And like the theme says, we want to reconnect so that we can plan for what we need to plan for coming up in the future. The other thing you need to know is if you have submitted an abstract in the past and were successful, you would have received an email or about to receive an email to confirm that abstract. Or if you want to resubmit, because obviously knowing what we know now after the last 18 months or so, you might want to rejig that abstract and resubmit it with the consideration of the new theme. You also may want to sit back and relax and not speak at all and attend the event just as an attendee. That's perfectly fine as well. Or you want to resubmit as is and still see that your abstract is very relevant. So you can certainly do that as well. If you have already paid, you would have already received an email to confirm that registration and go through the process to get you into the new database of the new event. So please, if you haven't done that, make sure you jump on and do that as soon as you can to make sure your spot is there for you. You can scan that QR code. It will take you straight to the brand new website where you can find all this information and more, including our keynote guests and speakers. We have a session coming up with Connect and Share at the end of the month, the last one of March, which will go through that in a little bit more depth, and you'll be excited to see some of the lineup that we have planned. So off NOAC now and on to OCA Summit. So you might remember in the couple of newsletters through to the members, we talked about the Outdoor Council of Australia calling a summit, and this is to address some of the conversations that we've been having in the industry around work conditions and promotion of the sector, career pathways, a lot of different areas that we know are opportunities and challenges, and we need to collectively work as a nation to see how we can fix some of these challenges, but also reach out to the opportunities. It is happening in May. So no doubt, if you're well connected with Outdoors New South Wales and ACT, you'll find yourself either an invitation or some information on this very soon. But just to flag it, that we are definitely having a lot of conversations around the opportunity that this summit can bring to the industry. Masterclass is now full. So sorry guys, if you missed out, you have definitely missed out on this year, but you might be able to register for the next year's event. Thanks to Queanbeyan Leagues Club for this amazing opportunity. We have 30 of our members going through a very intense day of content to help them in preparing for what they need to in their outdoor activities. So we're very excited. We were just talking about it a minute ago. Everything's ready to go. And yeah, we look forward to meeting people in person on the 29th of March in Canberra. So the other opportunities that are currently open, the ACT campaign is certainly in its high stages of getting ready. And we've got a few new activities that have jumped on board. And from a couple of conversations I've had in the last couple of days, we've got a few new ones as well. So it's great to see such interest in trying to get involved in this campaign. There's some exciting news I can't tell you too much about just yet, but more on marketing the industry as a whole in the future. So I'll certainly update you when I can on that one. Don't forget the tourism grants are out, and if you are in the adventure tourism space, this is a great opportunity to get some money to help your business go to that next step and develop your product. So please jump on the website, have a look, see if you're eligible, but that closes at the end of the month. So get in there quick, because it does take a little bit of organising to get those grants in. And please always know that we provide letters of support for opportunities like this, because it only helps the industry as a whole. The entrepreneur grants, that's certainly something that if you've got an idea for an innovation, or you've tried something and it certainly looked like it's working and you want to extend that, the Western Sydney University Entrepreneurship Innovation Grants are a great opportunity to tap into. Dine and Discover, don't forget, if you're offering something for visitors that can either drop in or book online, the Dine and Discover vouchers can be used for outdoor activities. So make sure you register as a business. It's in test now, it's going to start ramping up, and we're all going to start receiving our vouchers from the government very soon. So make sure you're put into the mix and the choice of offer for residents to use their vouchers with you. And the same goes for Canberra. The Canberra voucher system is a little bit different. It is only for Canberrans to utilise the services of Canberrans businesses, but very similar approach. They get a voucher and they can spend it within your facility. And it's a great opportunity to promote to the locals what we have in our backyard in Canberra. So a lot going on there. Don't forget outdoor work. It is certainly got a lot of content on there at the moment. If you are hiring or you're needing staff, send it through to us. We'll make sure we include it on that page. And we're looking at innovative ways that we could try to tap into workforces, because we know this is a big issue for our sector right now. And certainly when I attended the Tourism Australia conference yesterday, needless to say, I think we all recognise that international visa holders are going to be a long way away, that quarantining particularly is going to stay in our lives for some time yet. So, yep, we've got to be innovative. We've got to think about how we're going to get these positions filled, and let's work together on that. So send it through and we'll make sure it's included on that page. We've got some new tools and resources for you as well. So we had a board meeting this week, and thanks to my board for all their volunteer efforts on what's been quite an intense couple of months with the strategic planning and a lot of different activities. And yeah, they approved the mountain bike subcommittee this week. So we now have some amazing skilled people on that subcommittee, and I'll look forward to reporting more about our activities as we get started on that one. And the other committee panel that they approved was the AAAS audit panel. Now, this is going to be a fabulous tool. We'll start off small. We'll start off with three businesses that can certainly help you in connecting the AAAS with your processes. And as the demand builds, we'll work with more businesses to do so. This panel has the skills and expertise of the AAAS, so that they can review your internal processes and see how it aligns with the AAAS. They would produce a report back to you to show you where you need to improve your systems for not only just risk management processes, but internal processes and a better business. And also it could help with your insurance discussions with your brokers. So this is a great opportunity, guys. You don't have to sit through all the AAAS and work out and navigate and interpret. You've got people that really know this stuff that can come into your business and help. So more information on that will be on the website in the coming weeks, not months, weeks. So that if you want to take advantage of that, you can do so. And just a final one on the trail bike subcommittee. You might remember we've had this one in train for quite some time now. We're having some excellent discussions about some of the opportunities for trail bikes going forward, including potential recreation licensing. But there is some communications that we are going to be sending to some real key stakeholders in this space. If you feel that there is someone that needs to be connected with this activity or content, please send their details through. I'm happy to put them onto that specific communication. We don't want to block all of the content that we have going out to our whole industry and members. This is very specific, very targeted. So if you're interested in being part of that communication or someone you know, please send it through and we will make sure they're added to that list. I'm getting sick of my own voice. Okay, so the Connect and Share is coming up. Today we're talking about severe weather. Very timely, unfortunately. I heard about the earthquake in New Zealand this morning, so thoughts are going out to them and making sure that everyone is safe and well, and the predicted tsunami is not going to occur. So very timely. 12th of March, I'm going to take you through the newly approved strategic plan before I send it to you all. So hopefully on that day, I will be able to give you the extent of where we're heading as an organisation for the betterment of our industry. And the 19th of March, we're going to have a members forum. I've got one interested member who wants to throw a challenge in there, but I do a call out to everyone. If you've got a problem, a solution, something you want to ask everyone, 19th of March is the opportunity to do so. So let me know and I'll put it on the agenda. And then the 26th of March, we'll have your update on the schedule of NAWEC, including all keynotes and some of the abstracts that you will see. And as always, we have all our recordings on past sessions on YouTube. So, severe weather. I thought we'd just start with a bit of a video to help you get in the mood of severe weather. And I'm sure we don't, we know a lot about this space in dealing with the outdoors. But let me just jump to where I've got this video, if I can find it. She says that she's trying to navigate the ship. There we go. And I'll share my screen and sound with you now. think you get the idea. So I just thought I'd set the mood by saying that there's a hell of a lot of different weather events that I'm sure we've got to consider in our activities. But before David has to race off, I've got two of our risk management committee and incident response committee with us today, which is awesome. Two Davids, David G, David C, thank you so much. And look, we're here because these guys have been very passionate about making sure that we provide the best tools for our industry in dealing with severe weather. David, did you want to say, sorry, David C, did you want to say anything quickly before you had to duck off? And we'll take everyone through the guidance note at the moment.
Yes, I think one of the things I think as an industry we need to be aware of course, is the risk management around severe weather. Yeah, whether we should be out there, how to manage an emergency that does occur. But I actually think the underlying issue is the key one, and that's the how do we manage financially and program wise for increasing severe weather. There's lots of more days that we're not going to be able to go in the bush, not going to be operate certain activities at camps, might have to cancel in advance or on a day. And how do we deal with our customers so that we've got alternatives and we don't find losing the customers because they've been washed out too many times? And how do we future-proof our industries and our businesses financially? So that we can pay our staff, they're not going to lose pay, and so that we can budget in for any issues that might happen there. So I think the financial one is something that we actually need to have a good think about, as well as the actual risk management. So I've got to go, guys. And at least I was able to make it for a little bit. Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Dave. Thanks for that comment. And good luck with your day's activities.
Okay, thank you. Okay, bye.
Great. Anyone else want to make a quick comment before we sort of jump into the depth of the discussion just on severe weather? Is there anything that's front of mind for people when you say the word severe weather?
Laurie, I think just if I could.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, you go, Simone. That's all right.
Got a frog in my throat. I was just going to say that I agree entirely with what Dave was saying, that we're going to have more days like this in the future. And that's the thing that I've really observed in the last, 25 years of working in the industry, is the events become more severe. And they can be, we've had one year here at Lithgow where we were dealing with tree falls and snow. And the following year, to the same day, 12 months later, it was the opposite. It was massive bushfires. So, we are observing that and it's affecting also because of the social media and the amount of media out there, is just that parents and also people in society see this and don't see that we've actually got a bunch of procedures in place, or that we've already got our own protocols of when we're pulling a program. So often there is a lot of ignorance around some of the systems that are really great that exist already in our organisations. But I really look forward to hearing about this one.
Cool, thank you, Simone. John?
I was going to say a similar thing to you, Laurie, but I guess the part of it a little bit comes into, there is a bit of a hardcore attitude or projection out there that, even, there's a pretty common saying of there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothes in the outdoor sector. And if we project that out to schools and parents saying, oh yeah, we don't care about weather, we're going to be doing these activities anyway, as this increases in severity and frequency. So, particularly, obviously it comes back to, and this is a bigger question of what's the society doing to try to mitigate the impacts of climate change. So I guess this question is really about adaptation, but there's the mitigation picture as well, which we need to be, whatever part we can play in that, we need to play it. But this piece, I think a large part of this is marketing, as far as saying the outdoors is very, very conscious of the severe weather, and we are about managing these activities in the right way. And David makes a good point about the financial sustainability as well, that, it's one of those things you need to think about as any organisation. And it's not just, you know, from a business point of view, it also applies to non-profit organisations too, as far as just running an event. If an event is what props up a club for, you know, for a year, one severe weather incident can derail the finances of that club.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was David Gregory, your words still ring in my head. I think it was yourself that said, you know, when it comes to severe weather, it's avoidance of anyone being in that situation first and foremost. And like you said, that comes into the cost element, but also the planning element. And yeah, and how we communicate that, I think. Jeff, you unmuted?
Yes, I did. There's and I guess it ties into a little bit of what something that Dom said, as well as something that David said, is that severe weather, as Simone outlined, there's some pretty severe things that we deal with just across the industry, and the longer you're in the industry, certainly the less severe some weather conditions appear to us, which comes to Dom's comment of, you know, the comments of, you know, we just need the right clothes, need the right gear. The point we need to constantly remember is what we consider as severe after years in the industry. A newcomer, as David pointed out, too many washouts and they're not going to engage anymore. So severe weather for a newcomer might just be, I got washed out at a camp, which might be a minor rain for some of us. So yes, we've got some pretty severe stuff we need to deal with, but our definition of severe can be very different to the definition of severe for a newcomer to the sector.
Yeah, no, very good point. Very good comment. Yeah. David, can you articulate your words better than I could?
No, that was very good. Thank you, Laurie. And Jeff, you make a really good point, because that's actually one of the things that I deal with a lot with my role. So we work with an outdoor provider, but I mean, I've worked internally as an outdoor editor at schools for many, many years. So our perspective on what is severe is quite different from what a classroom teacher is. And that's the ongoing communications piece that we're working on every single briefing, that don't just try to pull the pin straight away and decide, no, it's too dangerous. You've got to get in touch with us first. So it is that communications piece between teachers and between outdoor providers. But also really good points on the fact that, yeah, there are going to be more severe weather events. And we just reviewed our campus bushfire policy, and we had all of these defending ideas and this, that, and the other. And we just looked at it and went, this is crazy. We are not on this property. If there is a fire front coming through, we're getting out of there first. So I think it's really important that we do have really good systems in place for managing this. And as Dom made a really good point there, it is that marketing piece. It is making that really clear to our participants and our members that we are on top of this. Because I have now countless emails from parents giving me their risk management opinions on our programs, which actually miss the point. I see where they're coming from, but as Simone was saying, that this social media, this whole build-up is putting us in a situation where people are second guessing our professionalism and our practices. And I think this is a really good step to reiterate our professionalism and our practices as an industry, because we do manage it very well. But it is those perceptions, those different perceptions, and also those real severe weather events that are coming in now. Yeah, that's adding to the challenge. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Any other questions or comments at this point in time? I think that's a really good summary of where we need to take this. And as I said, this has been brought about by our committee really seeing that we need to provide a better tool for the industry that's up to date in looking at some of the challenges around the planning of severe weather. And for those that don't know, back in, I think it was 2010, if I'm correct, a gentleman who was very well known to most of you, I'm sure, David Strickland from Victoria Parks, was the one that really pulled together a severe weather guidance note.
It is exactly that. It is a guiding piece, but it was quite out of date. So I know the risk management committee have been talking about getting that up to date, and we have updated it, but we still feel there's some missing gaps there, which is why we're going through this process now of relating back to the industry and saying, okay, what do we miss? What do we need to include? What are some of the considerations? And I think it was yourself, David, that got this this slide from Uploads, which is a great summary of what they capture when it comes to weather-related incidents. And I'm sure you sort of already started looking at this, but I'd invite any comment on this, anyone that's been involved in anything of this nature. But obviously it's still a significant area that is causing incidents. And as we've just articulated, it's probably going to be more so with the events that we're having. But is there any comment on this particular slide? Because you guys live and breathe this thing more than I do on a day-to-day basis.
They're all scary, Laurie, but the one smack bang in the middle, the supervisor, mental, physical, and then it goes fatigue, allergies, physical fitness. I think that's one that probably hasn't been probably really fully considered in that. Like the next one's the participants, but when we're talking about staff, if you're out there, and this can just be, you know, several days of high temperature, I shouldn't say just, that can be a deadly experience, but that side of things, as far as adapting programs for heat, you know, just that's a particularly, you know, Western New South Wales and the fair whack of Queensland, that's actually a real worry, I think, that sort of stuff. And it's probably one that I don't know. It's probably not as bad when you have a group of kids coming in for a 3-day camp. But if you've got your staff doing that, you know, week after week, it can really take a toll. So, yeah.
It's a really good point, Dom. And I think the challenge that we've got right now with our staffing levels only emphasises that one. You know, when you look across the whole industry and the gaps in the positions that we have available, it's the same people with the leadership skills that are delivering every activity. And from what I'm hearing, we are frantic. We are flat out. What is that doing to our guys now without that severe weather factor being thrown in? So it's a really valid point. I don't think we spend enough time probably looking at that one. Any others that jump out to people?
I mean, the gear one is one that's caught us a couple of times, and that's even with our clear packing lists and this is exactly what you need. And I think this is more just, we caught this with our double checks and our risk systems, because we just did a quick pack check inspection before we went into an area in which we couldn't easily get out of. And 3/4 of the kids hadn't packed their thermals, even though it was on their packing list. And we're like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to take the kids into this situation, because then our risk just went exponentially higher. So it's definitely one of those things where no matter how well we plan, it's always one of those things that it's like, oh my goodness, they've got a plastic poncho as their rain jacket or something like that. So yeah, I can see that, and that happens to the best of plans.
Not the garbage bag, or just absolutely, yeah. No, there's always the human factor associated, which, you know, you hope that as Bill Gates said, content is king, knowledge is king. You know, having those double checks and those processes is certainly incredibly important. Okay, so if there's no more comment on that, which I'm happy to send this through to anyone that hasn't got this, but it's an incredible oversight of the whole incident, weather incident. What I thought I might do now is actually show you where the guidance note is up to. It is certainly not complete. It is certainly not something that is set in stone. And we want to show you this so that we can get some solid feedback on it as we're fixing it up, as we're progressing it. So look, apologies for the Word document, but I've felt that this is probably the easiest way that I can also track any comments that you're making as we go. Can everyone see that okay, or do you want me to put it up a little bit higher? Is that a bit better? Just give me a nod, that's fine. So this document, we wish for the Outdoor Council of Australia to obviously own and share amongst the whole nation. It's not just a New South Wales ACT document. We want to make sure that, you know, anything that happens in the industry will be reflective whatever state, wherever town you're in across the whole nation. So we've got to work together on this. It's certainly being reviewed by our committee, but we're hoping to get this to the industry as a whole. As I said, this was originally done by the Victorian Outdoor Industry, and literally we'll just pick that up. It's about, there you go, 2009, so it's a little bit older than I said, but yeah, definitely needed updating. So there's a lot of content in here, and I'll just go through the actual content list here, because it just gives a bit of an outline of where it heads. So first one is about your planning for severe weather, and it looks at you know, the physical environment, safer places, trigger points, communications, local authorities, training, and the notification of incident. That one was actually added, as was the duty of care. That wasn't in the previous severe weather guidance note. And I think this was brought about, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, around that safe work requirement and that duty of reporting an incident that I think our sector probably somewhat knows to the extent of their requirements to notify of an incident, but really not to the depth of probably what they should. And it literally comes down to anyone that it has been medically treated, you know, there should be a notification of incident to safe work. So we can take you through that in a little bit more depth. But did you have any other comment on that one, Dave? Is that something that we needed to cover off more?
Oh, only just quickly, but yeah, you're spot on. It's aligning all of the various legislation for which we as an industry are responsible for implementing. It's just better aligning that with the things around severe weather, and WorkSafe is one of them. The Schools Act is another one for some members, and the Public Liability Act is another. So it's just trying to align those so it's reasonably clear of where we need to report an incident if one occurs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, beautiful. Thank you. Part 2 then goes into the consideration. So it talks about each different type of weather. So whether it's fire, severe weather, just in general, obviously cyclones, winds, that type of thing, lightning strike and flood warning, right through to blizzards. This was interesting when we started going through it, because what we found is, depending on the agency involved in that severe weather, they would have their own guidance notes, and they'd have their own categorization of what was severe and what wasn't severe. So what we've tried to do is try to keep it quite general in this space, but push people to that content where it is relevant to our activities. And that's the part that's being done right now. So particularly, I think there was a recent fire warning system update. So we've got to make sure that we are in tune with those types of releases as they come about. So does that structure make sense, or is anyone seeing any gaps that should be in that structure? Oh, of course, got temperature down the bottom, sorry.
It looks good, Laurie. I just had a quick look at our procedures here, and it's covering lots of them, so that's good.
Oh, good.
And I like how it's got the safer places as well, because that's the thing is about, you know, severe weather warning campsites, etc., that you can get to. If you can't get your students out of the field, where are the best places that they can go?
Yeah, fabulous. All right, well, we might go through that one in a little bit more depth in a second. But no, that's great feedback. Thanks, Simone, and good that you're already planning for all of that as well. Okay, so if we just run through, and stop me anytime, guys, jump in anytime you see that there's something that we should look at, because this is what today's all about.
Sorry,
Yep.
can you just scroll back up on that list?
Mhm.
Does extreme surf, does that come into it as far as surf activities? Like, is there something we should have on that?
You know what? I don't think I would have guessed that it could have gone into wind, but I don't think we have, do we, Dave?
Or is it in the coastal waters?
Yeah, if it's not, that's a really good point. It should be in the coastal waters and wind warnings. So let's, thanks, Laurie.
Yeah. Coastal waters. Yeah,
We
so
could
literally,
definitely add more to that, I think, yeah.
very much so. Something that we missed. Beautiful. Thanks,
And
Tom.
it could even go off, you know, if whoever the appropriate authorities, whether it's Surf Life Saving or local councils, local authorities, close beaches, you know, that's a pretty good trigger for us. But yeah, I think it's just probably just something we probably need to consider.
Yeah, no, beautiful. That's good. All right, I'll go back up to the top. Sorry, I'm going to get a
Might want to
headache.
include river systems in that as well.
Say that again, Stu.
You might want to consider rivers as well. So if you've got a downfall upstream, what does that do to the rivers going downstream?
Okay. Yep. I think we've got river flood, riverine flooding.
Okay.
We might get to it down, yeah, and just make sure that what is in your head is mentioned in here. Okay, that's great. So just, yeah, as I said, going through the components of it, the introduction, it's just trying to say the best risk management plans and processes will avoid conduct of outdoor activities in any location where there's a forecasted severe weather event. And that's Dave's words perfectly positioned there. You know, we shouldn't be in any place where there is a forecasted, a warning, something around severe weather. But, you know, if it is unforeseen, there's variable conditions, you know, what is the process? And this is what this is all about. So let me go through quickly, jump through to the planning. Again, apologies for the headache. That's all just your intro. So the physical environment, knowing the landscape of your activity, how does it relate? It's this is sort of saying you need to understand the physical environment in which you operate and some of the challenges that may present should you be in a severe weather event. Safer places, to Simone's point, locations that the group can move to. What sort of areas would be away from wind? What areas would be away from flood? What areas would be away from lightning? You know, and what's going to be best. And they sort of mentioned under each of the categories of the weather event. The trigger points, you know, understanding what a trigger point is. At what level, what measure should you start acting or consider acting? You know, what trigger points, it's too late. You've got to stay now. What are you going to do? So understanding what those trigger points are in your activity and using them as levels or quantitative measures for your planning. Then the communication, you know, what have you got access to? How are you going to get the messages out, not only to people to know where you are, but to the group itself, all of the different types of communications that have to ensure the safety of the attendees. And then knowing who the local authorities are. It was interesting, we've got Mark Arundel from Mulga Cycle Tours on our risk management committee, and because he operates in a different place every single time he does a tour, the multitude of different authorities that he has to involve in his planning is insane. And as Dom knows, he has struggles with the different legislation across borders and the different aspects of what he has to do from a risk management perspective as soon as he crosses over at the Tweed, you know. So I think that in itself is an exceptional understanding to be able to plug into any severe weather system or planning. Training, obviously, we need to ensure that you've got the right systems and tools for your staff to understand what needs to be done, but they are across any of the planning that you do for severe weather. So it's not just one carriage that takes this content, that everyone is across it so anyone can act on it. The notification, the one we were talking about before, and this relies on the WHS Act and the legal responsibility of leaders and their businesses. So what is a notifiable incident? What has to be reported, and what is your duty of care? Your duty of care around your staff and clients. This is a continual one that keeps coming up in recent cases. And quite frightening as a past event manager, that the aspects of what duty of care can have on an event manager. I remember it wasn't too long ago where the event manager of a big city event was charged because one of their attendees got overly drunk and fell in the water and drowned. And it's just, right, what are the steps of that duty of care that that event manager had to prevent that from occurring? And that's the sort of stuff that we've really got to think about. What do we have to put in place to think about all the things that could happen if there was a severe weather event? Rob, did you want to talk to that? I just saw your chat.
Yeah, no, sorry. I just wrote a message there, but do you want to read it out and then I'll...
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I will, because it's quite lengthy. That's good. Thank you. Mindful that a standard is written for full-blown outdoor education business, it should consider not to overburden a small operator. Nature play, walking to a headland, a 2 to 4 hour kayak tour on a flat river. If it's made too involved and too tick the box planning, it'll make it appear small operators have to do whole deeply involved risk management. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. So for small operators, what is over planning? What is overkill on risk management processes? Yeah, very valid point. Anyone got any thoughts around that?
Well, I guess it's just from my my perspective, and I came in a little bit late to the chat, but so you know, if it goes down the path of legal or scrutiny, and there is a standard that's 40 pages long, or I might be a little bit flippant there, but if it's very extensive and someone automatically looks at what happened or what you're meant to be planning against, and it's say if a little nature play going into the bush or going to a headland hasn't done the whole remit of everything, they go for a skate immediately rather than saying, well, we did what was reasonable, and the word is reasonable, take reasonable care, even at the front of this AAS document. Nothing's compulsory, it's just what is reasonable. So as I've written there, just if there's the whole raft of emergency and risk and planning and pre-planning, that's all well and good, but just mindful of probably, I don't know, would you say 50 to 70% of operators are not that big that they have 4 staff that can do a whole risk management document.
Yeah, I certainly have a response to that, but I'd love everyone else to jump in on any thoughts there.
I think on this one, Laurie, I think everything in this document is fair and reasonable from an industry point of view to be implementing, and it's not arduous, it's not onerous in what's being developed, and you're quite right. If something does happen, the operator will be held to account in regards to something like this. So immediately lawyers will grab hold of industry guidance and have a look and say, and map it against, well, what were the practices put in place? But really for this document, I think it is quite fair and reasonable. And it's just looking at what are those weather warnings? Have you checked your weather? Have you prepared? Have you got the right equipment? Are you prepared for this? Is the right decision being made to go out or not still? So I don't think it's going to be over the top, and that's definitely not the intent where, and I do get the point really, because a lot of documents can be arduous and you go, oh, well, why are we ticking this box? I mean, COVID is a classic example of over the top compliance. And I know that's a whole debate in itself, but yeah, it's definitely not the intent of the document to do that. It's the intent is to protect small operators as well as anyone in our industry operating on really good practices.
Yeah,
I think, Laurie, if I could, I think we're better off having a guidance note that's developed by the industry for the industry than something that gets imposed on us by a coroner's court.
Absolutely.
So having this, that's where the value of this is, where the value of the adventure activity standards is it's developed by people who actually really understand the operating environment. And Robert makes a good point about it being able to be applied to a small operator, a volunteer club, or a major business. And a major business may have a higher responsibility and may need to go into much more detail. But someone, literally a nature play, the example Rob gave of the nature play, going for a walk at the local park, they still have a pretty high level of responsibility to bring those kids back safe and sound. So let's not think just because you're going to the local park, it's just, well, literally a walk in the park. It's it's still important, and it still needs that responsibility. And it also has long-term ramifications if it's not done well by all operators. So I think that's where this comes to. I completely agree. You don't want an onerous document, but also this gives, if you can go through this, most people will be able to say, yeah, I do those things and I'm sweet. And it might be, it rings a couple of bells and go, oh, I haven't been doing that, maybe I should.
Yeah. No, beautifully said, both of you. And I suppose all I was going to say, Rob, is that's what you're put in that chat discussion is exactly why this document is so important. It gives a guidance for people just to make sure that they're complying, but also thinking about these processes. And without this document, yes, it could be very overwhelming. And like Dom says, you don't want it to end up in a coroner's court and say, well, you had nothing, you didn't have a process, you didn't have a document. And then you seem to be more liable at that point. This is providing you tools to be able to navigate some of that, not overkill on planning, but what you should be considering. And to Dom's point, you've just got to measure the risks that you have in that activity. And that's what's the relevancy. It's that activity. What are the risks? Understand what that is. You're not going to plan for a snowstorm when you're dealing on the North Coast. You're dealing with what's in front of you and what's relevant to you.
It also comes down to the weather apps that we have, because we rely on them so heavily, and they're not always accurate, because we called off a day thinking it was going to be heavy rain, and it rained sunshine that day.
Just on that, interesting, do you remember I brought the Mountain Safety Collective to you sometime ago last winter, and they were looking at the backcountry monitoring, and certainly they've been very good on the Victorian side. We're hoping to engage them more on the New South Wales side. But of course, they're not being funded by New South Wales at the moment. So they stopped looking at New South Wales and stopped reporting on it for obvious reasons. Our own state government emergency services rang them and said, where's your reports? We're relying on them. and they went, well, we're not being funded to do it. We can't do it. But, it's that whole thing of, right, we're trying to find that content. We're trying to find that accuracy of information. We've got to have, as you say, Stuart, better systems on those provisions of weather information too. That goes outside our scope, but we need to be aware of what's available. Rob, does that help? You can say no.
Yeah, sure.
Overwhelming. Yeah, but when you sort of see the rest of the document, that might give you a bit of a helping hand with where we're trying to guide, if you like. So any other comments before we scroll through? Yep, okay. So this is where we get to the nitty gritty, and as you can see, there's going to be links to various, as to Stuart's point, where you can get that best accurate information. Yes, the Bureau is not always right, but it's certainly the best that we have at the moment when it comes to weather warnings. We're still trying to get access to all the weather warnings that they do. I keep seeing new ones pop up, so I'd love an index of weather warnings that they have access to, and I think Mark's trying to find that as we speak, so we can put it into this. But obviously when we look at fire weather warnings, we've got now the fire danger index, and that's quite consistent now across the country, which is nice to see. And I've just spelled appendix wrong. Don't mind me. Yeah, the total fire ban measures, which again are more consistent than they have been in the past, and obviously due to different reports on fires that have happened across the country have helped that go into the right space. The fire
Fires Near Me app's not a bad app too, Laurie, if you want to mention that. They do put some warnings on there for fire, and you can see where the fires are.
Yep, beautiful. I'll just do a quick. Beautiful, thank you. Good one. So what this is just indicating is, you know, what are some of the extreme times and warnings that you need to be aware of, and what the trigger point actions could be. So again, it's just guiding, Rob, to your point. You know, if you see that you're going into a bushfire zone, you know, what you need to put in your plan. Obviously code red, extreme, you'd be avoiding the area like there's no tomorrow. And then what do you do in the case that it's severe, or to the lower points, low to moderate? And, you know, these are just guidelines again to say, you know, do you reevaluate your camp choices at very high level? Do you look at reminding the group about behaviour of the threat of the fire and what happens if the fire comes close? So again, it's just giving guidance. It's not saying this is what you've got to follow, but certainly as a business that's doing an activity where fire is an issue, it's guiding people through that process. So in the conscious of time, I don't want to go through everything, but is there something relevant that people want to have a look at in regards to weather that might be more applicable to them to have a look at? The flooding or lightning, anything like that. And then what I might do is circulate this to the group so you can have a bit of a look at it and see if you've had any comment we can throw back to the committee.
Laurie, hi, Rob. Just going back to the point we touched on about 6 weeks ago about emergency contacts. So I just thought I'd raise it. Remembering someone had a heart attack at 8 o'clock at night on Mile Lakes in the pouring rain, and I followed up afterwards. It's just about who to contact, and because I know there's SES, there's Fire Marine Rescue, there's Surf Life Saving Clubs and all sorts of things, but it boiled down to the fact that if you just ring 000, they've actually got a very good procedure of getting hold of everyone that's in the line, in the firing line. So I thought, you know, they weren't that well organised, but apparently some policeman from Bulahdelah got in touch with a whole rammet of people, and they all turned up, ambulance and everyone included. So as I said, I was trying to negotiate through Marine Rescue who to save me on the middle of the Mile Lakes if they were the person, but it was just 000, and they have the hotline to everyone else.
That's a really good point, Rob. And I've scrolled right to the bottom where we've got our contacts, and I just remembered we actually haven't got it listed. Oh, I can't even spell. Yeah, so Dave, that's something we probably should try to get into the top section as well. Because we've got all the different messages for planning, but when the actual incident occurs, that is your go-to.
Yeah, well, apparently if you ring the local, it goes through to Sydney, and then it goes out into the regions, and then they fire it around to they have a hierarchy of emergency responses. Like I say, the primary, instead of Marine Rescue, the organisation that did the bulk of it was the Cape Hawke Surf Life Saving Club, because they had jet skis and things to be able to pull people out. Not SES, they don't have the right equipment to zip down there quickly, but they just pulled them into where the ambulance could get at them, and it went from there.
Yep, beautiful. No, good point. I mean, obviously, as I say, this is trying to look at the planning side of it, but it's a really important point to put it in there that, yeah, don't spend your time trying to get to the people that you're providing the pre-information when it's happening. Let's go to the emergency service. Okay, Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Sorry, as I scroll back up, did anyone see anything that triggered a thought or a need for them? And just as I do that, yeah, go for it, Kelly.
I just had a thought along that emergency services contact. Have you included something around like if you were setting off a PLB and that emergency response?
Good idea. Yeah, we've really concentrated on the prevention, not the actual incident. But yeah, that's something I will definitely raise with the committee. I think we probably
I guess it comes back into that prevention bit of being prepared of what to do.
That's right. Yep, perfect. I'll just put that there for my thought and action. Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. Just jumping back up. Again, conscious that you've all got other things to do at 11 o'clock. But how's it looking? I'd love people's feedback. Is this something they can use? Is this something that they see as very relevant or not relevant? What do you need?
I think it looks like a fantastic resource and great guiding point for organisations.
Great. Oh, thanks, Kelly. Fabulous. Awesome. Okay, guys. Well, thank you for joining us today. This is an important step in anything to get to a better solution and a better tool for you. So we'll certainly be talking about this next week in our meeting and getting it to a point that hopefully is really at the point of getting OCA's approval before it goes out far and wide into the outdoors community. So thank you for joining us. Have a great rest of the day. And if you want to join us at 4 o'clock, you're more than welcome to do so with our happy hour. And have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.